We are back for another UFC DFS strategy show. That is a fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. Pete, how you doing, man?
What is going on? I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh man, it's a crazy day here in the office. Like I feel like I've just not stopped going all day long, man. It's crazy, you know. By the way, just posted my interview with Ashley Yoder. Talked to her the other day, so be sure to check that out over on my YouTube channel and whatnot. So yeah, man, it's a busy day, man. I'm kind of looking forward to this weekend, maybe a little relaxing weekend for me. The last 2 days, man, have just been absolutely nut. But UFC back in Vegas. I guess the big thing would be is back to the 25-foot cage, Pete.
Yeah, small cage, man. And if you recall, the small cage really produced some exciting fights. Could have been coincidence. I'm not sure. I think it's definitely because of the limited space pressing action and forcing the fighters to engage more than they're accustomed to. Last week was great, man. I feel like we absolutely killed it. I hope you guys made some great money, saw tons of screenshots, and we're looking to do the same this week.
Yeah, man. If you hit some of those big underdogs last week, if you counted on Jesse Ronson and Fabricio Verdum, you put yourself in the big scenario. I mean, Jesse Ronson breaking the slate last week. Just man, if you call that one, man, kudos to you. I know we did have some watch that did tell us. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. Start lining up those questions, comments right now in the chat. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. We'll tell you about the offer SuperDraft has going out for you right now. Of course, they're always a sponsor here, and always look at those multipliers. Who are the multipliers you do like? But of course, Pete, let's get right into the main event. Derek Brunson and Edmund Shahbazyan. Of course, initially this wasn't supposed to be the main event of this fight card. It was supposed to be Holly Holm and Irene Aldana. Of course, I think everyone pretty much knows why Irene Aldana had to pull out of the fight. And now this is a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight. I think that is something that you have to note if you're thinking of this potentially going 5 rounds, even though Edmund Shahbazyan, he's only made it out of the first round once in his 11 fights, and that was making it to the third round in his UFC debut. But let me start off here with Derek Brunson.
Okay.
Losses in the UFC: Yoel Romero, Robert Whitaker, Anderson Silva, Jacare Souza, Israel Adesanya. What's his best win? Is it Lyoto Machida? Is it Lorenz Larkin?
Yeah, it's probably Machida. I mean, between Machida and Larkin, he's fought some legitimate competition and ultimately come up short. So I can't fault him because he's fighting the who's who of the division. But, he's a little too reckless, especially early on in his UFC career, where he is hunting knockouts and finishes, but leaves his chin right up in the air and does have some defensive deficiencies, and it leads to him getting finished more often than not. But he also has some incredible wrestling in his back pocket. So it's just a matter of if he's going to use it, because if he tries to stand with Edmund Shahbazyan, ooh, boy, that's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one question that I have about Derek Brunson is this a fighter that has evolved throughout the years, especially when it comes to head movement?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I think, he is what he is at this point of his career as far as striking. But you could talk about game plan, and I think that we have started to see an adaptation to his style where he started to resort to his takedowns again, possibly because he's dropped I don't know how many fights due to KO. If you think about the back-to-back losses of Jacare and Israel Adesanya, both by TKO, then he decided to start, let me win some fights by going back to my wrestling. 4 takedowns against Elias and then 2 takedowns against Ian Heinisch. So I think that's the strategy here. And I mean, his coaches better be telling him to take him down, because standing at range or, trying to dirty box with Edmund Shahbazyan is not a good idea. Maybe the smaller cage helps him in this scenario of getting his hands on Shahbazyan.
Yeah, Derek Brunson, he's won back-to-back fights, decision wins against Elias Theodore and Ian Heinisch. Ian Heinisch fight, he gets rocked, first 15 seconds of that fight?
Yeah.
And pretty much has to go into takedown mode at that point.
Yeah, he's going to be in takedown mode from the get-go in this fight, and that would be this smart strategy. But the problem with just going into takedown mode right off the rip is, it's easy to predict. And Shahbazyan knows that Brunson's going to be trying to take him down. And if Brunson starts to overextend and telegraph his takedowns, I think that Shahbazyan can really pick him apart. 9,100 for Shahbazyan here. It's an incredible play. I like him here. I'll have plenty of shares of him. Excellent stand-up fighter, great boxing. Does have some good takedowns as well. So when he does get tired, he likes to resort to the takedowns, averaging 6.7 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is nuts. I think it could be using his wrestling defensively in this matchup to keep it up on the feet in order to take Brunson out. But 9,100, I don't know if you need the main event this week, though, Jason, in case Shahbazyan doesn't get the finish. So it's not a 5-round bout. Don't think that you need the main event, but I'll have plenty of Shahbazyan.
Man, I don't know if you're reading my mind. That I was going to bring that up next. Of like, hey, man, do you have to? Because every week we're talking about, it's. I mean, 95% of the time we're like, you got to roster the main event.
Yeah.
It's a 5-round fight, and all these things. I guess the question is, if Shahbazyan wins quick, A, does it pay off for you, and B, does that equal he goes in the optimal lineup?
I say if he wins quick, it does, because he's not a high-end 9,000 option. It's not like we're talking about Chimaev at 9,800, who absolutely murked his opponent. We're talking about Shahbazyan at 9,100, and a first-round win, and then you add some significant strikes or a takedown or a knockdown, he'll definitely clear at 9,100. So take that out of your head if that's your concern. Your only concern could be if Brunson gets his hands on him and it turns into more of a grappling fight than what you're accustomed to seeing with Shahbazyan's quick wins, or if it goes all 15 minutes and he doesn't necessarily score the finish.
We had a question in chat, or more of a comment, I should say, in the chat. I'll get your take on it. Brand says Shahbazyan is going to catch him with a knockout going for a takedown.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If he shows the knee, if he shows the uppercut, Brunson will be a little hesitant as well. I mean, I think Brunson's going to be a little bit more patient than people think, because he has been reckless and paid the price for it. But we have seen Shahbazyan struggle with his cardio as the fight goes on in the Darren Stewart fight. So it's almost like whether that first round, get a feel for him, try to get your hands on him, score some points and everything, maybe weigh on him against the cage, press him against the cage, try to zap his energy a little bit. But I think Shahbazyan's the play here at 9,100. Brunson at 7,100. If he gets the takedowns and he does somehow win a decision, he will definitely be in the optimal.
Would you say Shahbazyan's a lock on SuperDraft at 1.2?
Yeah, I like Shahbazyan. All platforms, 20 on FanDuel. You're talking about a nice striker. That's just he has good first round potential. We've seen Brunson get wobbled and staggered by, I don't know, I've lost count of how many opponents now. So his chin's not getting any better, and the damage of his career is starting to catch up to him, and you're starting to see it.
Steven asked about top 3 FanDuel locks. We'll kind of get into that question as we go on, but kind of to answer a portion of that right here, and you just mentioned, is Shahbazyan even at $20, he's a lock on FanDuel for you?
Yeah, I don't like that word, but I definitely will say that Shahbazyan's a part of the people I'm going to have a lot of. I'll have plenty of Shahbazyan shares.
Rhett saying, loved your advice last week, help him get a payday. So congrats to you there. By the way, you remember on Saturday we were joking about the people in my neighborhood who like to mow the lawn early?
Yeah.
Leaving the house yesterday morning at like 8:15, someone's mowing the yard.
Oh goodness, they're playing a dangerous game right now with the neighbors.
Dude, tell you, it's not before 11 o'clock for me.
Yeah, I can't blame you on that one.
Look, I'm just trying to avoid a hurricane this weekend. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Oh, so live before lock, you guys might be stuck with just me. And
well, it started to. Well, I haven't seen the 5 o'clock, the 11 o'clock forecast. It has doing a right turn hitting the east coast of Florida instead of the west coast of Florida. So being here in Tampa, feeling much better about that. Yeah, so you should have me on. There's a lot of me on Awesemo this week. I got after we do this show, I'm doing the MLB Early Bird podcast, and then I've got the MLB Live Before Lock tomorrow afternoon, and apparently I'm doing NASCAR on Saturday as well. So a lot of me this weekend here on Awesemo.
Hey man, it's warranted. You're a great host and killing the game, man. So I'm glad that things are starting to come your way.
Yeah, but I'm all over Shahbazyan in that one. He's going to be a staple in.
Yeah.
He won't be in all my lineups, but he'll be in a majority of my lineups.
Yeah, I mean, I like him here. You've seen Brunson get knocked down and wobbled. You're talking about Shahbazyan, 11-0, 4-0 in the UFC, 91% finish rate. He is relatively green if you think about, like, this is his toughest fight, 100%. This is his toughest fight. And will he rise to the occasion, or will he let Brunson into a closer fight than it should be?
By the way, Rhett goes, obviously this is in relation to the lawnmower. My neighbor would get the fire hose for that.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, God. Sometimes because I'm an early riser, Pete. I'm an early riser, I mean, I get about 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning.
Yeah, so
I get the sense you're not up that early. I get the sense you're not.
Depends on I have training or not.
That is true. Co-main event, Jojo Calderwood against Jennifer Maia. Of course, Jojo the favorite in this one. And you told me I had to mention something that we were talking about on the phone a little earlier today, where Jojo Calderwood, she's tempting the MMA gods here. She had a title fight.
Yeah.
She is now taking a fight because Valentina's, they were supposed to fight back in June. She pulled out of the fight due to injury. So JoJo's taking this fight. Pete, she is tempting the MMA gods here.
Tempting the MMA gods to lose. And, passing on a title fight and just trying to take another fight to stay active. And how many times do we see this backfire? But guess what? I think Calderwood here gets it done. I think, Calderwood is really coming into her own here. She's 33, 6-4 in the UFC, facing Maia, who's 2-2 in the UFC. The output from Calderwood is crazy. 6 strikes a minute, absorbing 4. So the defense isn't like amazing, but her output is what, will produce nice scores for her at 8,700. She has struggled in the past where she'll get caught in a submission, and Maia is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but the takedowns aren't there. Maia averages 0.25 takedowns per 15 minutes. That's essentially nothing. The worry here is if Calderwood, for some reason, is getting pressed by the plotting, coming forward Maia with her, big hooks into, pressure, that maybe Calderwood resorts to the takedown. She's averaging 1.85 per 15 minutes. And Maia off of her back sneaks in a sub. Because honestly, that's really the only way I'm seeing Maia taking this fight from Calderwood. I like Calderwood at 8,700. I feel pretty safe saying that.
Would you agree with Brandon in the chat that Calderwood could be a sneaky play this week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she's averaging 75 DraftKings points per minute, 6 strikes a minute, absorbing 4, 1.85 takedowns. So her activity is incredible. The worry is her finishing ability, which for women's MMA is generally low, 43% finish rate. But her work rate can basically outperform her salary at 8,700. So despite her lack of finishing ability, I think it's a nice spot here for Calderwood at 8,700. 16 on FanDuel is crazy cheap too.
All right, what do you think the over 2.5 rounds is on this one?
Minus
on the betting odds?
Minus 350.
You are close, bro. You're close. Minus 400.
See, I'm getting there.
Dude, if you think a stop's coming under 2.5 rounds, that's plus 325.
Ooh, yeah. I'll save that for somebody else. I think that the smart thing here is just to play Calderwood straight up or nothing at all.
By the way, Jennifer Maia, 2-2 in the UFC. By the way, she's missed weight in back-to-back fights. Yep. I think that's something to note. Her last 8 fights have gone the distance, and her last stoppage win came in 2015. So I think those are very important notes to know about in terms of this fight. Of course, this is the DFS strategy show right here on Awesemo.com. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft, the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and a loaded lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Of course, we all know sports is back as we do this show live. The Jazz and Pelicans are playing on the television here in my office, and we are giving you your first month of Awesemo Plus half off when you use the code RESTART at checkout. That's only $45 for a month of Awesemo's leading DFS projections, tools, and content for NBA, MLB, PGA, and more. Celebrate the return of sports with this great deal. You won't find a better value anywhere else. Take advantage of this offer very soon because this offer does expire on August the 3rd. Once again, that is promo code RESTART. You mentioned about all those great tools. Right now, we got a free premium content up at Awesemo.com, Pete, and that is the MMA Top Fighter tool. That's one of the tools that Alex puts together, and I'm always checking that one out. By the way, kudos to Alex for taking down some money this week. Heard about that big winning, man. Man, kudos to him for taking that one down, man. We're trying to take down this big money here on all the platforms coming up here this week in terms of what's going on here. And, of course, if you do have any questions for the show, be sure to hit them up right there in the YouTube chat. If this is your first time watching us, what we do is we break down all the fights. And, if we don't get your questions, we'll break down the fights. We'll get to them towards the end of the show. Plus, we'll give you our picks at the end of the show as well. Then we got a matchup that I think a lot of people are going to be looking at in terms of their roster construction, and that is Vicente Luque and Randy Brown. Of course, Vicente Luque, 11-3 in the UFC. He's won a Fight of the Night bonus in 3 of his last 5 fights, 7-1 in his last 8. By the way, all of his UFC losses have come by decision. Randy Brown started 4-3 in the UFC, but he has won back-to-back fights. Pete, what's your breakdown of this one?
Okay, say that again. Say what you said. Luque with the Fight of the Night. Say that one more time.
3 of his last 5 fights have been the Fight of the Night bonus winner.
Now, why is that, Jason? It's because the man is always in close fights, and that's sometimes a good thing and sometimes a very bad thing. And if you're in Fight of the Nights, right, and you're not getting performance of the nights, that means that you're letting your opponent into fights that you really shouldn't be in a back-and-forth contest. So I think Luque is going to carry some heavy ownership here, and, of course, it's warranted because the guy is so talented. I love Vicente Luque. 8,800, you talk about a guy who is incredible for DFS. 92 fantasy points. His average time in the cage, Jason, in his UFC fights, 8 minutes and 47 seconds. That means he gets people out of there. But when he does not, it is a close fight. And people like Mike Perry make fights closer than they should be. Like, you should not be having a back-and-forth type of fight with Mike Perry. Luque should have went out there and outclassed him and put him away, and he didn't. Now, the issue here is all that damage from those Fight of the Nights that you speak of. And I think that Randy Brown here at 7,400 is sneaky. Now, I think this is a fight you need to target. And the winner of this fight will be in the optimal. I would like to say it will be in the optimal because Luque's output's crazy. 5.6 strikes per minute, and his damage absorbed is 5.79 strikes per minute. So he actually has a negative ratio, which is crazy. That could be inflated from some wars, of course, and he does have a great finishing ability of 89%. If you look at Randy Brown, they have a similar opponent, Nico Price, and Nico Price actually hammer-fisted Randy Brown from the bottom and KO'd him because of it. And Nico Price against Vicente Luque, their last bout was teeing off on Vicente Luque and really hurting him and wobbling him. And Vicente's really taken so much damage, and how much more damage can he take? I mean, he has a great chin now, but when will that chin start to abandon him? And against a very, very crisp striker in Randy Brown, I'm going to take some shots on Randy Brown, bro. I think that this could be a nice spot for him. He's 6'3", has a 3-inch reach advantage, and maybe I'm just riding the Brown train by myself, but I like him here. I think that he can expose the defensive deficiencies of Vicente Luque in this matchup.
Chris mentions in the chat, he says, people keep betting on Luque's chin giving out, but I don't think this is a spot. Smaller cage, Randy won't be able to stick on the outside as easily. Get your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's totally true. But it'll also, like, if Randy can actually keep him away from him and hurt him, as Vicente's looking to get, close that gap, I really think that you can see him wobble him here. And the obvious pick is Vicente Luque. I mean, that's pretty easy. But the job is trying to find an underdog under 7K you can get behind, Jason. And if it's not Randy Brown, which other 7K option you guys like and you guys feel confident in? Because I'll tell you what, I'll take my chances on Randy Brown here rather than some other spots that I think are just desperate Hail Marys.
Okay, so you love Randy Brown. Oh, I shouldn't say love. You
Yeah,
like Randy Brown on
yeah,
DraftKings.
yeah.
How about FanDuel?
Yeah, I mean,
17 and 15.
yeah, it's going to be a close fight. And the thing is if Luque doesn't put him out early or put him away early, and it's a back and forth type of fight, Randy Brown definitely can rise to the occasion and accumulate a ton of strikes and a ton of points because it's going to be what I think is going to be a striking war. I think their wrestling should negate each other. And Luque, people say that he has an incredible ground game, which he does. But I think that they're underestimating Randy Brown's takedown defense and also his ability to get back to the feet. So I think it's going to be closer than what people think. Luque at minus 200. It's a tough fight, man. And you talk about a guy who has crazy, crazy boxing skills. So, I'll take my stabs with Randy Brown here at 7,400, but I'm not avoiding Vicente Luque. I think you need this fight.
You mentioned about the finishing rate, and people can see it right now up on the screen with the heat sheet. Of course, it's also available at Awesemo.com. You have 10 fighters on this card with a 80% or higher finish rate. I think that's something. I know there was, I want to say it was Samuel asked in chat a little while ago, could this be a card with a bunch of decisions? I think this is one, the smaller cage to me, it brings engagement. I think is about the best way to print. If you're a fighter that, tends to move around a lot, there's just, while it's only 5 feet in difference, once you actually start to look at the dimensions, you realize how much smaller it is and how much less real estate there is to move around.
Yeah. And the thing is you can't really be a slow starter with a small cage, because if you're a slow starter, your opponent most likely is on top of you, and unleashing on you. And that's just the facts of whether they're hitting you with strikes or they're pressing the engagement for grappling. And, any of these fighters can come out hot and really start to establish dominance in there and, octagon control and really just press in action. So I'll take some shares of Randy Brown at 7,400.
We always joke about on this show how much you love the 8,000 versus 8,200 matchup. You got it right last week, though.
I broke the curse, bro.
You broke the curse last week. And then we got that one here with Bobby Green and Lando Veneta, a rematch between these two guys. The first time they met, it was a draw, and if I can find my piece of paper where I had the actual numbers on it, where in the first fight, Lando Veneta scored 85 points in a draw, which is crazy. Yeah. Had 1 knockdown, 4 takedowns in that fight. Bobby Green scored 51.5. So if either one of those guys would have got the decision, added another 30 points to their score. Now heading into their second meeting here, Bobby Green, he has gone to the distance in 9 of his last 10 fights. The only time his last stoppage win, you got to go all the way back to 2013 versus James Krause.
Yeah, it's crazy. And this fight's, it's going to be fireworks. Veneta in the UFC is 3-4-2, and Green is 6-5-1. Talk about 2 extremely strange records for UFC records. And if you look at Green, he has a 68% chance of 68% finish rate. So, rematches tend to be somewhat similar and slightly different. And we started to really see Green get some momentum behind him as the fight went on. Veneta looked good early and has the takedowns to resort to. And you also think about Green and his past performance against Clay Guida. He kind of disappointed a little bit, in my opinion. I thought that he could have, put Guida away, but Guida was able to take him down, and he did get back to his feet. But I thought that was a nice spot for him. I think this matchup's a little bit easier for him here. Veneta and Green are going to be engaging on the feet from bell to bell. You're talking about 8,200, 8,000 on DraftKings. FanDuel, they are hating on Bobby Green at $12 versus Veneta at $18. So if you're backing Bobby Green here, like I am, I think Bobby Green's going to be able to get it done. I think the $12 is nice. Ty, if you're listening, $12 for Bobby Green's a nice little piece that you can add. 1.45 on SuperDraft is nice as well. I think the problem is Veneta takes so many shots. And if you look at the stats, he throws 4.72 strikes per minute and absorbs 4.73. So it's almost a push, but he does get hit quite a bit and tends to allow his opponents back into fights where he'll start off great and look hot early, and it's almost like he starts to phase the fight goes on. Bobby Green's durable. I like Bobby Green here at 8,000 with the discount.
Yeah, and Brandon mentioned in the chat, Green's price on FanDuel. I mean, that's a hard price to ignore when you're looking for that lower, salary fighter on FanDuel at $12. To me, that's someone that I'm going to be, kind of targeting in a good amount of FanDuel lineups. Let me mention this question or comment that Andrew brought up saying, should we consider stacking this fight?
Okay, so stacking, there's no 5-round bouts, right? So if you want to get cute, so to speak, and you want to stack some fights, you should stack fights that are either going to be scramble fests for both sides, not just one side, or back and forth striking affairs. So like I say Vicente Luque, Randy Brown could be interesting if it stays on the feet for all 15 minutes. And I also think Venata and Green could do the same here. Ultimately, you are going to have one victor and one loser unless it goes a draw again, but I don't think that's going to happen. And it's not a terrible strategy, Jason.
No, it's not. Joe, appreciate the tip there in the chat on YouTube. He says, all right, Jason, Pete, who's your guys' locks of the week? And fight on the card that could be a snooze fest. Bummer no Chimaev on this card.
Yeah.
In terms of my, let's just snooze. Let me go snoozer first.
I got one.
Who you got?
I think the Vallejev and Emmers fight could disappoint a little bit. I think
that's a good one.
Vallejev is UFC ready. Should have been in the UFC for a while now, and is definitely a prospect. But I think that Emmers is going to look to be safe. He dropped a fight to Giga Chikadze, and Vallejev moving up a weight class. We'll get to it, but I think that I think they're both going to be safe and looking to do just enough to squeak by on the judges. And you're talking about guys that have a 44% finish rate and a 59% finish rate.
Yeah, in terms of locks of the week, let me press this in more language you would prefer. Who are you comfortable with picking this week?
Yeah, thank you. No, we don't say that L word, bro. Okay. Shahbazyan is a guy I feel really confident in. I feel confident in Calderwood as well. The Luque Brown fight, I know that fight's going to be in the optimal, but I can see it honestly going either way. And Ray Borg, I mean, we'll get to him as well. Ray Borg's another name that I circled and I probably have a ton of.
Yeah. Hugh saying Spiceley is my lock of the week.
Ooh, we know a lot about Spiceley, and I know a lot about Spiceley being in New England. So we'll get to that. I'll help you guys out with that.
That's a bold call. I would
with that. Yep.
Yeah, that would not be a fight I would look at as someone I feel confident on either side of the equation in that one. Next up, the first fight on the main card. By the way, this entire fight card is on ESPN Plus, so you got to have that ESPN Plus subscription to watch the fights. We got Kevin Holland taking on Trevin Giles. Kevin Holland 4-1 since losing his UFC debut. Let me ask you this: who is Kevin Holland's best win? His wins in the UFC. John Phillips.
Yeah, God.
Gerald Meerschaert. Yeah. Alessio Di Chirico. Anthony Hernandez.
Yeah, 100% it's Meerschaert. And I don't care what Meerschaert, how he's been lacking of late. Meerschaert has some great wins and some good skills. And, you think about last time Kevin Holland was in the cage, we were all over him. I know I was at least, and I think you agreed with me that we love Kevin Holland in that fight against Fluffy. So, here at 8,900, you're talking about borderline 9,000 option and basically inflating his price because of his previous performance. It's warranted though, Jason. He has 82% finish rate. The guy's average minutes in the cage is only 11 minutes and 55 seconds, whereas Giles is 12 minutes and 14 seconds. I think this is another juicy fight to target. And you could be looking at an upset here, or you could be looking at Holland coasting to a victory. But, man, there are some things I heard on some interviews that I don't really like, Jason. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the shoulder. The shoulder is something, and that's obviously any fighter how important the shoulder is. Brandon had asked. He said, he goes, Holland is going to be overowned because of performance last time out. I think he wins though. By the way, pulling up our projections on ownership over on DraftKings, we're projecting as we currently stay here on Thursday evening, Holland at 37%. Over on FanDuel, 46%.
Yeah, that's about right. And I might be a little underweight on Holland this week. And the reason is what I mentioned, the interview that we spoke of. He was talking about how, he had that quick win and was supposed to be booked within the next week or two and had to pull out. And his management and his team basically said, the best idea was to pull out of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then he visited some specialists and some true top doctors. And it sounded like they wanted him to have surgery and sit on the shelf for a little bit. And what he was saying in the interview was, I don't care what anybody says. I need to get back out there and get active because I had some momentum behind me from that great win. I look great. Tons of people were talking about me. I got to stay relevant and I got to get back out there. And Holland and Giles know each other pretty well and know of each other pretty well. But when he was talking about how he had so much lack of movement, flexibility, anything in that shoulder, and it was hampering him so bad, but he had other tools and other ways to win the fights. Seems like you're really bothered by that shoulder. And I wonder how it's going to affect his performance here against Trevin Giles, who a lot of people think this is just an easy matchup. And I feel like it's going to be closer than that. Holland has great chokes, good striking, and Giles leaves his neck out there and gets exhausted. But so does Holland. Holland gets exhausted. So maybe the big body of Giles against the cage just, presses against them. But I'm going to be slightly underweight here, Jason. I wouldn't be surprised if Giles put off the upset.
Joe, once again, appreciate the tip there on YouTube. We're going to get into Mershart here in a little bit, where he said, he goes, I hate to say, but Mershart 205 could be a good fit for him, but I hope my dude Short Fuse Herman can get it done. That's going to be an interesting one to kind of talk about here. We're going to talk about that fight momentarily. Mershart just got knocked out, 45 days ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be one to get into. Something I want to mention about ownership, and this is more on the FanDuel side of things than the DraftKings side of things. When you're building your FanDuel lineup, especially this week, of course you're going to have lines where you don't want to put Shahbazyan as your captain. But you got to look contrarian on FanDuel and look at other fighters. And maybe Kevin Holland is that type of guy.
Yeah, I'm not hating on Kevin Holland. I'm going to be slightly underweight because the skills are there. His finishing ability, 82% finish rate, he's there. I can see him finishing Giles on the feet or via submission. But how bad is his shoulder hurting him? And that's just a true thing. And I don't know how many people recognize that he's going into a fight hurt. And I know tons of fighters, and myself included, have gone into fights not 100%. That's just the reality of it. But if it's really going to hamper your performance, maybe you take a slightly underweight approach. You already know crazy ownership's going to be there. So we'll have to see. But Giles, on the other hand, it's not like he's a full-time fighter. I mean, the guy is a full-time police officer and fights. Mm-hmm. And the balance of that as a true professional in the elite of the UFC, the top 2% of the world, something you got to take into consideration. So maybe the shoulder and the non-full-time commitment to fighting nullify each other. But how can I say that when Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight champion of the world, is a firefighter? So you know what I'm saying? It's hard to balance. But, find something that you like in this matchup and, back that person.
Look, anyone who follows you on IG at Pete the Heat MMA, we see those stories. You're back in the gym,
Always, man. Yeah, I have to. I have
to. Looks like working hard over there with that cardio.
Yeah, trying. My girl's killing me.
Sometimes I look at the facial reaction on those IG stories and it's like the comedy of my night.
Yeah. Oh man, she kills me, and I'm super thankful. She's my nutritionist, girlfriend, and she knows how to get me in good shape. She played soccer collegiately, so it works out well.
I saw, I think it was today, you posted about you cutting your own hair. I couldn't do that, bro. Couldn't do it.
Yeah. I got a pretty easy haircut, though. I just buzz the sides and everything, just leave the top long. So I can't imagine doing yours with
no, I got to go to the barber, man. Got to go to the barber, Got to get that taken care of. Then we got Frankie Science and Jonathan Martinez. Spoke to Jonathan Martinez about, I guess about 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And he's coming off that controversial split decision loss against Andre Ul. Of course, we all remember, that fight. And, and obviously the big thing he said to me is, and Jonathan is a man of not many words, But he said, he goes, look, I'm not letting this thing go to the judge's decision. And you look at Frankie Saenz, and a guy that's 39 years old, been around for some time, but it is his first fight since March of 2019. 7 of his 9 fights in the UFC have gone distances, coming off that TKO loss against Marlon Vera. Jonathan Martinez 2-2 in the UFC. Should be noted, him and Chris Gutierrez, both out of Factory Act, both on this fight card. They're close friends, train with each other all the time. So I think that's something to also note about this fight.
Yeah, great points, Jason. And, Martinez does have some promise at the 135-pound division, and Saenz is 5-4 in the UFC. But, 39 years old at this point in his career, how much does he have left in the tank? Saenz only has a 42% finish rate. So if you're expecting him to go out there and finish Jonathan Martinez, most likely that's not going to happen. Anything can happen. Martinez has 73% finish rate. I like Martinez in the matchup. I just don't know if it's the most DFS-friendly fight. Saenz has been working at Fight Ready. Jonathan Martinez has been working with Chris Gutierrez. I think Martinez is better on the feet, has great knees up the middle if Saenz is looking to take it to the mat, as he should, because Saenz does have good wrestling in his back pocket. But I wish he really went for it more. If you look at his stats, he's averaging 1.77 takedowns per 15 minutes. So they are there, and it's possible he goes that route, and it would make things more interesting.
2 things here in the super chat. Joe, once again, man, really appreciate the donation there. He goes, I'm friends with Holland and one of his head coaches on Facebook. Holland talks about how important this fight is, and he wants a finish, then has a call out. I'll tell you this. So when I talked to Grant Dawson before his last fight, he tells me how he has a call out. Gets the win. Nothing happens. I talked to him a couple days later. I go, man, where's the call out? He's like, yeah, well, my days at 45 are basically, he is still open the door to 45. Rest of his team's like, no, you're a 55er now. Yeah, and so he basically said, he's like, yeah, I didn't want to call it a 45 because I thought they might try to give me a 45-pound fight on short nose, and that just couldn't happen. Samuel, hey, appreciate your donation there in the chat. He goes, who's going to be the highest owned underdog?
Highest owned underdog. I would say probably Ed Herman, honestly. I think Ed Herman, if you're looking on, it's tough to say that though, because I feel like Meerschaert's going to carry some heavy ownership as well. But I would.
Well, Meerschaert's the favorite.
Yeah. I meant just ownership in general because of his finishing ability.
So, looking at Alex's projections as we currently stand,
yep,
your highest owned underdog would be on DraftKings, Nate Maness.
Really?
And on FanDuel,
that's crazy.
Jennifer Maia?
Interesting. I think that
Jennifer Maia.
I think Herman's going to be pretty heavily owned.
Actually, Herman on FanDuel has the highest ownership of an underdog.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we'll get into that fight here momentarily. Actually, it is the next fight we're going to talk about, Meerschaert and Herman. I think that in terms of, this is a GPP fight. But it's going to be a lot like the Paul Craig fight last week, where you knew you had to have that fight, but you knew if you got it wrong, you're going to have like 5 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate those fights. As far as the Martinez and Saenz fight, is it the best fight for DFS? I'm not sure. 8,600, I kind of like Martinez. Saenz at 7,600 if he goes the takedown well. Let me throw out something. Who is Frankie Saenz' best win? It's going to blow your mind and everybody's mind. Don't even look it up.
Well, I remember because I was looking at it earlier, because he won 3 in a row years ago.
Ready?
Was it during that stretch?
Nope. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow everybody's mind.
I feel like I know this. Once you say it, it's going to click in my mind. Who is it?
Rob Dalishvili.
Really?
Yes. Frankie
That's been Rob's only loss.
He has a win over Merab Dalishvili. It's insane. It was in 2017 split decision. So that goes to show you that Saenz can step up and take out some top people. So tread carefully here with the Martinez ownership. I do like Martinez, and Martinez is my pick. But it goes to show you if Science has anything left in the tank, maybe 7,600 isn't a bad play.
Yeah, at 8,600, I just don't
Yeah.
score enough. If he gets a stoppage, he could.
It all
But
depends.
I have a feeling this is going off 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think so too.
Herman and Mearshart. Here's what concerns me about Mearshart. A, it's at 205, not 185.
Yep.
He got knocked out June 6th. We're June 30th. So, you're talking essentially 2 months between fights. From your perspective, from the fighter's aspect, do you believe that's too quick of a turnaround?
Yeah, I do. If I'm being honest, and even though Mearshart's my pick for the fight, I do think that's too quick of a turnaround. I'm thinking if I was coaching guys, right, and one of my fighters got knocked out, no way I'm letting him take a quick turnaround fight. I don't care if he got dropped and then spun behind and hit with ground and pound and was blocking the ground and pound. The fact that he basically lost his legs for a little bit and was flash KO'd essentially, I would say take some time off. Let that brain heal because your chin only can take so many shots. And once it abandons you, Jason, it really, really abandons you. And, you can't even take normal shots. So it's concerning. But at the same point, I would be saying that Mearshart should take more time off if he got extremely knocked out unconscious. He got dropped and wobbled and people get hurt every fight, but it's weird to say he got finished, but it's not like he was put out. So flash KOs happen even in training. So I personally would be protecting my fighter and say, you need to take some time off, but I kind of get it. Mearshart here at 8,300 with a 94% finish rate. That's insane. Herman has an 80% finish rate. You guys probably need this fight. And Herman's going to be popular at 7,900, Jason.
Yeah, I just feel I think it's a GPP fight. I know I've got a roster with somebody in this fight. Don't feel comfortable either way.
Yeah, it's interesting because they're like mirror images. Same height, same reach, just 7 years the elder for Herman. It's a crossroads for Mearshart because he's 6-5 in the UFC. Herman's 12-11-1. Talk about a who's who of who he's fought. It's crazy, and he's lasted in the UFC for quite some time now. But the reality is he's tough, and he gets by in his grit and his punching power. But he's really, he's not going to stick around too much longer. Whereas Mearshart's finishing ability, submission-wise, makes it interesting. And Mearshart, 3 strikes a minute, 3.5 absorbed, negative ratio there. But if he can get a hold of Herman and take him down with his 2.34 takedowns per 15 minutes, even though Herman does have decent takedown defense, I'm siding with Mearshart here, and I like him.
Great multiplier is over on SuperDraft on this fight. If you want to roster this fight, Ed Herman 1.5 times, Gerald Mearshart 1.3 times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the value is there for SuperDraft. And if you like Herman because he throws heavy leather and has knocked out plenty of people, and if he does clip Mearshart, maybe he finishes him. But I think Ian Heinisch is leaps and bounds above Ed Herman. I mean, in my opinion, as far as punching power, I know it's up a weight class, but I still think Ian Heinisch can throw any overhand as good as anybody in any division. I really do. And, I'm not going to try to weigh too heavily on that past performance. I think Mearshart can get it done more ways than one here. Not the best striker, but very, very talented on the mat.
Of course, that is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. This is the UFC Vegas #5 DFS strategy show right here on Awesemo.com. Of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and a loaded lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want, and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for NBA, MLB, PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, or $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Now, of course, be sure to head over to Awesemo.com and sign up for the Awesemo Plus MMA Weekly Pass, where you get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for the upcoming MMA DFS slate with the Awesemo Plus MMA Weekly Pass for $8.95. This includes full access to all of Awesemo's leading fire projections, ownership projections, and top fighter tool. There's never been a better time for MMA DFS, so step into the octagon today. Now, I know some people in the chat have been talking about this Ray Borg and Nate Maness fight, and people looking at Nate as potentially that low 7K option that could be kind of chalky in a way. But we've been talking about Ray Borg today, where because of the takedown abilities, this could be a break the slate type fight for Ray Borg.
Yeah, you know who has a one-way ticket to Takedown City? It's Maness. And I like Ray Borg quite a bit. And no disrespect to Maness at all. This is UFC debut. He's been waiting for this his entire career. He only has a 55% finish rate, whereas Ray Borg has 54% finish rate. But Ray Borg has been fighting some of the best fighters in the world for quite some time now. And let me blow your mind. He's under 30. Ray Borg is 26. It feels like he's about 35. And that's crazy because think about when he fought Demetrius Johnson. You know what I mean? Like, 7-5 in the UFC, so that's 12 more UFC fights than Maness. And I understand the argument for Maness is he packs a punch, he's good. He's 5'10" against Ray Borg, who's 5'4". He has a 72-inch reach. Okay, so that's a 9-inch reach advantage, which is insane. But Ray Borg's most likely not going to stand up with him. You saw him stand up with Ricky Simon because Ricky Simon was the superior wrestler in that situation and the stronger, bigger guy. Maness here, if he throws some shots, I'm guessing Ray Borg's going to duck underneath, press him against the cage, and ultimately, rinse and repeat, take him down over and over and over, racking up tons of points. The potential for Ray Borg here at 9,000 is incredible. It's not like Maness is some crazy efficient finisher where he's going in there and can actually finish Ray Borg. Why do I think Maness is going to come into the UFC and put away Ray Borg when plenty of people in the UFC couldn't do that to him? But the one argument you could say is Ray Borg's not a 135er. Ray Borg should be at 125 pounds. And he's always going to be facing a size disadvantage. So that's something he's just going to have to deal with. One of my fighters is super short, okay? And he's pretty big. So he's always going to be at a reach and size disadvantage. That's just the reality. I love Ray Borg. He's going to be a staple, okay, in most of my lineups. If I was going to have him in a parlay, I would do that. Straight up, minus 245. Not the best odds. I like him here, though.
Much more favorable matchup for him here in this spot than it was his last fight against Marab. So
that's like, and Marab was going to hand him the ticket to Takedown City. But like Ray Borg in this matchup, maybe maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe Ray Borg's going to go out there and have that striking output that he did against Ricky Simon, because he was really putting it on Ricky Simon standing up. And I know they were kind of just having fun back and forth, but Ray Borg's speed, his hands are crisp, crazy. I think this is a gimme right here.
I agree with you there. Then we got Eric Spiceley versus Marcus Perez. We're both very familiar with Eric Spiceley. I've probably interviewed Eric Spiceley 5, 6, 7 times. Look, we all know about his jiu-jitsu. I think the question with Eric to me is always kind of, if he doesn't get the fight to the ground, can he win the fight? This is an underdog spot for him here. But we have seen him shine in some of these underdog roles.
Yeah. Okay. So Eric Spiceley, I know so much about Eric Spiceley. We cross-trained together several times, and I like him a lot. I will always root for Eric Spiceley. And when I tell you that this kid's ground game is legit as it comes, I truly believe he can submit anybody his submissions are incredible. His ground game is incredible, but his takedowns really aren't the best as far as UFC is considered. So, the fight against Perez, 8,500 against 7,700. I'm going to sprinkle in Spiceley in several of my lineups because of that submission ability, and that, if he wins, most likely he catches somebody in a sub, whether it's a leg lock or whatnot, because he scrambles so well. But we have to take into consideration the stats as well. I mean, throwing 3.7 strikes per minute and absorbing 5.72. And I know that's a little bit ballooned because of his fight against Duran win. But neither one of these guys, have had the best UFC run. 2-3 for Perez, 2-5 for Spiceley in the UFC. I think it's going to be close. And if Perez gets tired and initiates the clinch and tries to take Spiceley down, Spiceley's a threat off of his back. He's a threat on the ground, and he can sweep anybody. So I think Spiceley is a live dog here at 7,700. He's a plus 175 dog. I'll have some shares of Perez because when Spiceley does lose, he tends to get finished, Jason, and that's the truth. Perez with a 75% finish rate, Spiceley with 83%. I think this is a nice spot either way. Sprinkle in some Spiceley, but I think Perez could do enough to get it done.
One thing I'll mention is I'd much rather have Marcus Perez at 8,500 than Jonathan Martinez at 8,600.
Yeah, that makes sense because, Jonathan Martinez, well, if you look at the finish rates, they're pretty close, Jason. Martinez has a 73% finish rate. Perez has a 75% finish rate, and that's based off of their wins, their entire career wins. But I think that Spiceley in the UFC, there's a lot of tape on how to beat him, and that's just the truth. But that unknown jiu-jitsu submission ability is there, and it's live. And I'm telling you, all it takes is one slip up. Spiceley could, be against the cage and Perez overextends on a hook, slips or whatever, and Spiceley takes his back for a second or just gets slightly behind him. And now you're talking about somebody who has some of the best jiu-jitsu on the planet. I'm telling you, Spiceley on the ground is legit. So Perez is my pick, but I'll sprinkle in Spiceley because he deserves it.
Two more fights to break down before we get out of here. We got Jamal Emmers versus Timur Valia. Vallejev, good old buddy with Zabit Magomedsharipov. If you've not seen that Instagram post by Zabit, congratulations, as they both look like the robbers from Home Alone. Just a tremendous video that Zabit put out there last week. Vallejev, you do got to pay. He's one of three guys on this card making their UFC debut. He is the favorite in this one. I like him more on DraftKings than I do FanDuel. SuperDraft, I think he's got a good multiplier at 1.3 times.
Yeah, so I like Valia a lot here. Timur, I think, is so skilled. Should have been in UFC for quite some time. 16-2 overall. Traditionally a 35er, Jason, which is a little worrisome facing, going up in weight against Jamal Emmers. But Emmers really disappointed in his last fight out, and I know I was on Giga Chikadze to pull the victory and get a KO, but Giga squeaked out a decision. It was very, very close, so I don't know if he really deserved that. But the point is, Emmers here shouldn't have lost to Giga Chikadze. He really shouldn't have, and I think Vallejev is so much better and is so skilled. So Vallejev at 8,400 is somebody I'll sprinkle in. I don't have the highest of hopes because he does have only a 44% finish rate. But if you think of Jamal Emmers, his two losses, okay? Giga Chikadze, Julian Erosa. That was on the Contender Series. But two of, I would say, the low level of the UFC, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah. Then the opening fight is Chris Gutierrez versus Cody Durden. Durden taking this fight about a week and a half notice. Trains out of Douglas Lima's gym, American Top Team, just outside of Atlanta. He had a fight like 2 weeks ago. He fought in a one-night tournament. So if you go to his Tapology, you see 3 fights in one night. That tournament is where it's a one-night tournament. They've done multiple weight classes. The winner takes home $10K. So go find a place on the regional scene where you can make $10,000 in one night, Pete.
Sign me up. I'd be doing that tournament too. I think if Durden had a full camp, this could be something that would be very, very interesting. And I know that he's been in the cage more recent than Gutierrez. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, he fought like within the last 2 weeks at a show up in Atlanta. I mean, look, to me, the key for Cody, and Brian asked this if he was crazy for backing Cody in the spot, is to me he's got to use his wrestling. You can't, we saw with I mean, it was on display against Vince Morales, but leg kicks is that's Chris Gutierrez's primary attack. So he's got to be able to stop that. To me, it's about Durden's got to get the fight to the ground. If this stays on the feet, it's Chris Gutierrez all day long. Does he pay off the 9,200 on DK? I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think he does. I think it's ballooned because of his previous performance. And we spoke of why we liked Gutierrez, and I spoke of why I really like Gutierrez and his kicks in the past performances, because he was facing a guy who primarily likes to box, did have wrestling background, but likes to box. So he's very, very heavy on that front leg. When you're heavy on that front leg, you are susceptible to getting taken down. Now, if Gutierrez goes to the leg kick well against Durden, Durden's a very good wrestler. You could be looking at him chaining together takedowns and using it to get a hold of Gutierrez, especially with the small cage. So I think Gutierrez is going to pick his shots a little bit better here, even though he did get the victory. I think he has to be a little bit more careful because Durden could take him down and put him on his back. So 7K option Durden is definitely somebody to sprinkle in some lineups and somebody to consider, because we have seen Gutierrez get taken down. One was against, Howney Barcelos, who has some incredible jiu-jitsu. But the point is Durden can take him down and stay on top of him. It's a completely different fight. It totally nullifies Gutierrez's strength, which is his striking, and it makes the fight closer than it should be. I still like Gutierrez. I think he can get back to his feet and do enough to get the decision. I don't think it's the best performance for DFS at 9,200, Jason. But in saying that, I'm obviously going to have some Durden. He's a guy, one of the underdogs that I have a ton of interest in. Like, if I had to go back and say who, for me personally, I don't have any interest in, I'd say Jamal Emmers, and that's just me personally.
Yeah, right now on FanDuel, we have no price on that fight, so we'll see where we at come Saturday. Let's go down our picks here before we answer some questions before we get out of here. Here's my picks. Shahbazyan, Calderwood, Luque, Green, Holland, Martinez, Herman. Don't feel good about that one. Borg, Perez, Vallejev, and Gutierrez.
Yeah, okay. I'm going Shahbazyan, Calderwood, Randy Brown, Green, Holland, Martinez, Mearshart, Borg, Perez, Vallejev, Gutierrez.
And let's get a couple questions before we get out of here. Kind of rapid fire these ones. Is Durden the Ronson of this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Durden absolutely is. He has a 91% finish rate, Jason, up against Gutierrez's 53% finish rate.
Would you say Manus is going to be the chalk 7K guy?
I don't get that. I mean, his reach and his height literally won't matter if he's on his back, and that is the truth.
Sam says Green and Herman are my top two underdogs.
Bobby Green, and her. Yeah, I think that's going to be a popular build, honestly. I think that's what everybody's going to do. They saw Mearshart get finished, and they think Herman can knock him out.
Will the contrarian play be going heavy on your favorite underdogs this week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you try to have exposure everywhere, ultimately you end up with not the correct, recipe for the optimal lineup. It's just you tend to get unlucky that way. So if you take an aggressive stance on some of the underdogs, obviously you're either going to be winning or losing. And, if you hit that correctly, you could be jumping up the leaderboard.
Sam goes, we all know Jason's feels about the first fight of the night.
Yeah. Are you passing this week on the first fight?
I would say I'll have probably a couple of shares of Gutierrez. I'd much in the 9K option. I'd rather have Shahbazyan and Ray Borg.
Yeah, I agree with you. If I were to have any shares of that first fight, I actually be taking a chance on Durden, and just if Gutierrez ends up with a good score, oh well, I'll take that.
Let's end on this one, Samuel. Top 3 MVPs on FanDuel.
Okay, you got to look at Shahbazyan.
Going to be chalky though. Got to note that.
Yep. In saying what I said earlier about Vicente Luque, Randy Brown, whoever you like in that matchup. For me, it'd be Randy Brown, but I can't hate you if you say Vicente Luque. Ray Borg at 17, man. That is juicy. I like that a lot.
I'm going to give you something more juicier about that. When we look at our projections right now, Pete, in the MVP spot, Ray Borg, 4.3%.
That's insane. Okay, so I'm just like how you guys all hit with Tom Aspinall. I told you that dude is nasty. Okay. I like
Shahbazyan was still optimal in the MVP spot, though.
Yeah, only by like, what, 8 points, 9 points?
Yeah. But he was so cheap. At $20 last week on FanDuel, that was easy money.
Yeah. And I don't have the FanDuel salaries for Gutierrez or Durden because FanDuel has not released them yet. So pay attention to that. Maybe they mispriced that badly. So we'll have to take advantage of it.
Of course, we'll be back on Saturday for Live Before Lock as we'll get you ready for these fights. Of course, be sure to check out all the coverage we got over at Awesemo.com. NBA is back, so you got to check out all the NBA coverage. We got a game going on right now. Of course, all our MLB coverage as well. Of course, be sure to give Pete a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Pete the Heat MMA. I'm also at Jason_Floyd. So that's going to wrap it up for this DFS strategy show for UFC Vegas number 5.